And I guess we are live. Sorry, I think I missed a key somewhere. I'm Jim Barrows, and joining me today on Skeptic Haven is going to be the one, the only, the legend in his own mind, Eric Murphy. And we're going to be taking your calls and having you come on and try to convince us a reason why we should believe in God, take the Bible seriously, or the Quran for that matter. Doesn't really matter. Whatever your favorite so-called holy work is, we'll be more than happy to talk about it. Coming up on today's show.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
Hello, Eric.
Hey, how's it going, brother?
You know, not too bad, all things considered.
Good.
I mean, I don't work for the government, so I don't have to worry about being furloughed.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And I don't live up there in Portland in that war zone.
Yeah, the smoldering ruins of the city. You know, I don't live in Austin anymore. I moved to Portland, Oregon. So
Yeah.
I guess I could report from it. I do just want to say I think this is the first time you and I have been on air
since
the ACA days. Since
Talk Heathen.
Yeah. I do want to put on the record, Jim, you have looked out for me in so many ways, so many times, for such a long time that, like, yeah, I have things that I think back about, you know, that time in Austin and all of that, but I will never not think of you as just one of the sweetest people I ever met.
Thank you.
I miss you, brother, and I'm really happy to see you.
Yeah, well, maybe when they reopen the airports and clear out all the war damage, I can fly up to Portland and we can.
That would be fun. Yeah, obviously, like, you know, as far as the city is concerned, the farmers markets that going on down the street in the middle of town have not stopped.
I didn't think they would.
People are still holiday shopping. The only stuff is going on in the block around the ice building. But they've actually been taking their activities out. So they have actually been in my neighborhood this last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, parked outside of schools, picking up people who are picking up their kids.
Yeah, I've heard some about that, and that is really, really massively uncool.
Yeah, you know, anytime you see a grown man just hanging around outside of a school, you know, that doesn't have kids there, like that's weird. Yeah, so actually my anxiety got it to the point that I didn't do my own show today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I didn't want to miss this. I'm happy to be on Skeptic Haven and happy to be here, man. So yeah.
Cool.
And thank you to you, by the way, for coming in last minute. We didn't talk about what happened with Neil. Neil and I were supposed to be on today.
Yes.
And he had a power outage about 5 minutes ago. No, 10 minutes ago now. The quickness with which you were able to come in and save the day, Jim. Appreciate it.
I mean, all I had to do is walk into the studio, so, you know.
Oh, maybe you needed to put on a shirt and some pants, you know.
Well, we're not going to talk about that. No one needs that image in their head, certainly.
You're good, my man. You're good. So we talked to callers about what they believe and why. This sounds like a similar
sounds
format.
normal. We don't seem to have any callers at the moment.
Well, I did have a fight that I wanted to pick.
By all means.
And I'd be happy to
Neither one of us are adverse to that.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I have been on this whole journey the last couple of months, really arguing about what value there is in debate. And I have been like really shifting in my views on it, and I would love to get your opinion on it. Like, how do I where do I even start? Like, should a human right ever be in a debate? Like, should you ever debate something like, gay marriage, trans rights, racial equality?
Well, I think I can go back to the 90s, and I would have sworn that no rational person would accept any of the crap that we're seeing now. And I was a Republican at the time.
Well,
I was still a Christian.
Yeah.
And, in the 80s and the 90s, racism and Nazism and all of that, it was probably bubbling beneath the surface that I could see.
Well, it was still a sideshow. They were still on Jerry Springer, right? They were still on
But you didn't talk about it.
No.
And I think that's the problem. That has been the problem, is they have been sidelined, and now that they are no longer on the sidelines, they're making a larger noise than they should be. They're punching way above their weight class in terms of percentage of the population. I don't think there's always a percentage of the voting populace who's not paying deep attention to that, right? They have their own lives. So this is not a criticism. It's just a recognition that they're going to be living their own lives, going to work, taking care of family, doing all of that.
Well, and they should. They shouldn't have to worry about that bullshit. Do you remember Bill Donahue?
Yeah.
The Catholic League guy?
Yeah.
The guy that would just threaten you with violence because he disagreed with, he would consistently go on Fox News, and it was just okay, we need to bring in a Catholic. We're going to bring in Bill Donahue because that is
he was loud and noisy.
Well, and he was the representative of Catholics.
Right.
It's did you really? Is that really normal people didn't pay attention to that shit, and they shouldn't. Bill Donahue shouldn't be something I remember in 2025.
Yeah. But I think that has been a problem. I know you remember what we fondly call the kerfuffle, when Rationality Rules was at the time saying some things that were transphobic and incorrect. And I always thought the ACA screwed up by not immediately going and saying, all right, we had two fantastic voices at the time that could have gone in and just done a debate and gone toe to toe, because that's what the shows do, right? That's what we do. And that didn't happen.
That's actually a really great example, right? Should that debate have ever happened?
Yes. Yeah. I think, I do. And the reason why is because and you and I both know this, we're never going to convince the caller. We're going to convince everybody listening to it. And that's where I think the value in the debates comes in, and putting everything on the table and being able to talk about it. First of all, it shows that we can have rational conversations about emotionally charged subjects, and it shows people how to do it. It doesn't push the people who oppose the ideas into the corner anymore, right? They're not going to proliferate in the dark like they have.
I think if your example, though, a rational conversation about an emotionally charged subject is not an Oxford-style debate.
No, it's not. And so I think I'm using debate a little bit looser than you are. Okay. I'm not necessarily saying a formal debate, but having conversations in public where you have two people arguing for and against a position.
So here's
opposed to
No, I got you. I think the two things that started getting me weird on it, though, dude, is the first is if you're debating a right? So so Steve did his video about trans women in sports.
Mhm.
And if you were to do a debate about transdominant sports, then conceivably you would have two sides who are arguing their case, right? And the person watching it is now the arbiter of whether you have made a good enough case
Mhm.
for for rights.
Mhm.
And
Right.
it is now the position of the person who is watching to determine whether or not they think there's a good enough reason for people to have rights.
Right.
Like the structure of itself is one that makes it so that an argument can be made and a decision can be had
Mhm.
about a human right.
And that's
You get what I mean?
yeah, but that's a good thing, because the alternative is for them to end up in an echo chamber where they only hear one side. And if the conversation is going to be about an emotionally charged right, I don't want to pick on anyone on any of these, so we'll just use emotionally charged topic. Is being in in the negative echo chamber. So if the choice is put them in a negative echo chamber because the people who are for it refuse to debate it or end up in their own echo chamber, I think that's worse, because that's what's happened. That's what's happened since the 50s. So, since the end of World War II, is a lot of this stuff got swept under the rug. It wasn't fit for polite society, and so this stuff ended up in an echo chamber.
I
Um,
I
you
think
know,
I think that I I think that's an appeal to consequence. And I
I
think that us
agree. I
actually
agree. It is, and
and it also assumes that the only other choice is them being in an echo chamber. And actually, I think that you and I have been great examples of the third option that hasn't been brought to the table, which is an empathetic, ongoing conversation and being able to show and demonstrate that, like, that
right. That's what
feels
I mean by debate. I mean, I'm including that in under the debate rather than formal debates. I think that all of this type of stuff where we're talking about our positions and trying to prove whatever position on whatever topic we're conversating about, or
Mhm.
we're talking about, is the important part.
Yeah.
And I think all the different styles have their place. I think this style seems to be more popular, where we wait for people to call in,
Yeah.
and have a conversation with us, um, and try and prove their beliefs is an important one. I think there's a place for formal debates. I think there's places, for debates like Bill Nye the Science Guy had,
Yeah.
and those types of things.
Well,
I,
and also do not count out navel gazing. I love navel gazing. You and I have spent many evenings gloriously navel gazing. That on its
yeah,
own. And like, I'm not trying to say that it's worthless. I'm trying to say that it doesn't change people's minds, and that, like, okay, like, there was a time when a blacksmith would, they'd be a journeyman, they'd
hmm
master their craft, and then they'd create a thing. And that
hmm
the thing that they would create is a proof of mastery. And you could show, hey, I created this thing. And that
hmm
was their demonstration of mastery, so that you could go, oh, yes, that is a master blacksmith because he created that thing. I feel like when you are, when you spend time in rhetoric, and you spend time learning, how to craft an argument, a
hmm
debate feels like a proof of mastery. That it
hmm
feels like you have developed, you have grown, you've done all, and you can kind of bring it to bear and show on a debate stage. But is it really useful in changing people's minds? And I'm specifically now trying to draw a difference
Well,
between
you're right, but
debate and conversation.
you and I have both been on the receiving end of how many emails when you were with the ACA, and when we were answering, the hosts were answering emails, which
Mhm.
hasn't happened for a while. The vast majority of the emails were stupefyingly negative. There were those that said, "Hey, we changed our mind," and then we can both go point at Dan as an example of a mind changed, right? A mind changed in a spectacular way. So it's not a fast process.
I don't think that's debate though. Like so Sadistic Senpai in the chat brought up watching a Hitchens debate, right? And how impactful that was.
Mm-hmm.
So my challenge there is, like, if you're going to point at a Hitchens debate, what part of the Hitchens debate was it that left an impact? Because I can tell you the really impactful things for me when I've watched Hitchens debate, because he's at you right here.
Yeah,
you know,
he's a master of the spoken word and the written word.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
And I think that he's a master storyteller. He's very, very good at saying, hey, this high level concept, let's talk about it in the real world. Like it's one thing to navel gaze and wax philosophical about rights. Let's put that into, is this right when it is actually hurting people and it is justifying the pain of people? I think that when people point at Hitchens, they point at the storytelling that he did to humanize things, not necessarily the rhetoric.
Well, I think both. I think that his ability to switch between them, to handle the formal debates, I think that he would be far more effective today than he was in his day. And I'm not saying he wasn't effective. I'm just saying that social media wasn't a thing in his heyday. So that's what I think too is, and that's why I say I include all forms of people discussing a topic when I say debate, whether it's casual conversation, which I agree with you, I think works very well, but I don't know that there's any way to actually know what part of a Hitchens debate was the most effective, because it's probably different for everybody, because everybody watched whatever that final debate was before the light went on or the switch was flipped, however you want to describe it, was probably different for everybody, right? I think everyone who calls is on a journey. Some of them are at the very beginning. Some of them are not equipped to make the journey quite yet, that when they call, because they haven't thought it through. And we both know when that happens. You can tell when a caller just hasn't thought it all the way through.
Oh, yeah. And you kind of root for them too. Like you want to help give them the best version of their thing. That way you can show them that the best version sucks. Like,
yeah, exactly. I think that's what's important. It's not important, I think, and I think it's important for as many different ways as possible, as many different voices out there as possible. When I was going to school, to college, I first wanted to be a teacher. Then I realized I was going to make nearly as much money teaching as I was in software engineering. But one of the things the first classes taught me was that the best possible teacher is only going to reach between 20 and 30% of the students. And I think that's probably true for everybody every person who debates, because we all have our own style. You're only going to reach a small percentage of the people. I'm only going to reach another percentage of the people. There's going to be some overlap, but where there's no overlap, that's how we get to the 100%. That's how we get to everybody, is to have all of the voices out there. So yeah, I agree that sometimes it just seems like, oh my God, here we go again. The look at the trees argument for the 5 billionth time.
Well, so the look at the trees argument, I feel, is fundamentally like the point that I was making about the structure of it. Like I don't think that is on the same level of, like, if you don't provide enough things that I agree with, I'm not going to grant you a human right. You know what I mean? Like, so like the really emotionally charged stuff is often the stuff around human rights. And I think that those should not be debated, because the structure itself creates a system that implies that you could not give enough reasons, and therefore someone could justify not giving a person a human right. You know what I mean?
And
like
you're doing the same thing I'm doing, which is appealing to consequentialism, right? I'm
well,
appealing to the positive consequence while you are appealing to the negative consequence. And I don't deny that giving people on the wrong side of human rights conversations a platform is dangerous. But where we are now is only partially because of the internet, right?
right.
It's been amplified by the internet, but it was started in the back rooms and places where the light wasn't shining.
And it is now. And I think the
Yeah.
lesson the internet didn't get, the lesson people didn't figure out is that, what do you get when you sit at a table with 10 Nazis?
Well,
You get 11
what do
Nazis.
what do you get when you have a black gentleman go into a KKK rally and walk out with somebody's robes?
You get someone who should never be, I don't think anyone should ever actively go, oh, that's an example I want to follow. That is a person
But
who is a
he's
spectacular example of like great. And also anybody who follows that is probably going to be putting themselves in physical danger. So
oh no,
that's
without a doubt, without a doubt. But again, that doesn't happen unless you take that risk.
but it can
Um,
if like I think that's a great example of somebody who created a personal relationship, who said, "Hey, I'm an active living example of the thing that you hate. Hate
mhm.
me, know me, and then hate me." And
Well,
and
I think that's what we do by being on these shows as well, right? Is we shine that light of this is who we are. We're not typically angry atheists. We can have
yeah,
civil conversations. I think the positives outweigh the negatives, especially when the negatives. Anybody who's in an echo chamber is in danger of losing their ability to critically think. So I,
absolutely. And also there is no marketplace of ideas for people in an echo chamber. Like
mhm,
the idea of an idea as commerce, right? Because a marketplace of
mhm.
ideas implies this visual of money and things, goods being traded back and forth, right? So if we treat ideas the same way we treat goods, then can we use the same metrics to determine what a good idea is, right? So is
Well,
is McDonald's fine dining because way more people shop at McDonald's than they do at steakhouses? So does that mean McDonald's is better than steakhouses?
so what's your definition of better?
Well, if I was running on this idea that if people can just hear the good ideas, those are going to win out in the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
And that's not the case because
Well,
often people choose what is convenient, what best fits into their worldview.
yeah,
Like,
because they basically have other things to do and they're not paying attention. But I think we can look at what's happened with this blue wave, where we have a bunch of people who are very, very shocked to find out what they actually voted for. And so maybe they'll pay attention a little bit better. But I don't disagree that for the vast majority of people, it's not going to work. But you don't make big changes in a hurry. You make slow changes at a time. When
yeah,
you're carving marble, it's one marble chip at a time. It's not remove an entire corner at a time to get to whatever it is you're carving. So I just
yeah.
think that it's a slow process. It's a process that needed to happen 30 years ago. It's something we should have been teaching in the schools since World War II at the very least. But we haven't been teaching people to have these conversations. And so I just think it's a net positive despite the risks.
Well,
Um,
and I'm not. I again, like Jim, you and I both left the church.
mhm.
Do you remember that feeling when you really went, "Oh fuck, the problem of evil"? You wanted to talk about it all the time. I did.
Well, I didn't. There's a reason why I say I wandered out of Catholicism rather
Okay.
there was never a sharp break for me.
Right. Death by a thousand
And
cuts.
part of it, yeah, because it was like, yeah, the problem of evil is insurmountable. It's one of the reasons why I'm not an agnostic. I am an atheist. I actually deny not only the triomni God because he's logically impossible, but the mere fact that any God concept doesn't fit with what we know about the way the universe works, right? There is absolutely zero reason for us to believe that anything supernatural exists.
Yeah, you would need to drastically change the definition of God for that to, absolutely.
Yeah, you'd have to have been completely out of shape.
Yeah.
But so I think and like I said, I think it's what is going to get us to a place where we can do this, where we're better off than we are now. I think a large number of people weren't paying any attention to what Trump was saying. It's so nice to be able to talk politics without having to worry about your nonprofit status in the organization. It a lot of people were paying attention to him and thought it was rhetoric. I don't think there's that the people who voted for him really thought that this nitwit would be doing exactly what he's doing. And part of the problem is that organizations like Newsmax and what's the other one? OANN, One American News Network. Yeah. They're not reporting the truth.
TBN
yeah. I don't think they're actually reporting what's going on. They're reporting whatever Trump wants them to say. And I think that's a problem, which, we need to return back to some sort of standard of, return to the fairness doctrine. I think that was a mistake because you have to present both sides. And our news anchors and our news organizations need to do that. And they need to report fairly. And I don't think any of them are doing that. And you can people make the same thing about the left wing, other news organizations as well. I don't really care which one we're talking about, the ones we don't like, but all of them should be doing it, right? MSNBC, CNN, all of them, Midas Touch Network, Young Turks should all be doing it.
It's a fundamental failure of the fourth estate. Like we got here because we had this idea that we had 4 estates and the fourth one just fucking went out for smokes and never came home.
Well, we let them, right? We let them chase the dollar rather than the truth. Kafai, no, we don't have any preconceived notion of God. We just have the definition that's in Webster's dictionary.
Yeah, and genuinely, like, if someone were to say God is like the universe, man, like, cool, then I think your God exists because I think the universe exists. But you would need to then define God as the universe. You would need to completely shift that.
Just playing antics with semantics. We don't need to label the universe God. We can just call it the universe and be happy.
We don't believe in God. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a dog with a new toy, about this whole debate thing. I'm wanting to, anytime that I see someone who I respect, I want to hear their opinion, I bring it up. Mm-hmm. Hey Jim, I respect you. That's why I'm picking the fight. Like,
it's a good conversation to have, and I think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah.
Right? Because while I think it's important to put this stuff on the spotlight, to have these conversations, have these debates, I am never going to hold anybody in a negative light or say that they're doing anything wrong if they choose not to. Because I don't know how we measure. Well, first of all, we need to come up with a standard for what good and bad are, right? Because morals are subjective, and that's kind of what we're talking about. And I use, happiness of the human population. Anything that contributes to it is good, and anything that takes away from it is bad. I know some people like well-being, but I've never seen I don't know how to measure well-being, and we know how to measure happiness. So that's literally the only reason I choose happiness. But if we use that as a measure, I don't know how we actually know how to measure that impact, right? I just lost a connection to call in studio.
So Jim,
yeah.
I'm following you down this trail, my friend.
Pardon?
I said I'm following you down this trail, my friend.
Yeah.
So hold on a second. It sounds like you're a hedonist.
Happiness is not necessarily pleasure.
Okay.
I could definitely see how you would get to that.
I'm asking.
Yeah, no. So yeah, happiness and pleasure, I think, are related but different.
Okay. Okay.
And so, like, there's the
if I'm experiencing
Harvard
happiness,
study. Yeah,
go ahead.
There's the Harvard study on happiness they've been doing for, I think it's closer to 90 years now, but the last thing I read was 80 years. But I think that was about 10 years ago. So, but I think that is something that, they measure that happiness. And that's something we can use. I just don't know how we go about measuring the effectiveness of debates so that we can accurately say, oh, hey, this is what's actually happening, and this is how we need to change whatever it is we're doing. And until we can do that, I think we continue to have the debate, which is why I don't hold it against anybody who says, I'm never going to platform these a-holes.
Well, so specifically when it comes to human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, on any topic, but yes.
No, not any topic.
Yeah.
Specifically, human rights is the one that I would say it might actually be a bad thing for anyone to do ever.
Mm-hmm. Right, and keep in mind, I'm not disagreeing with that. I just don't think that not talking about it is better.
No,
necessarily.
I agree. I'm specifically talking about debate. I am separating out discussions and human relationships and all of that. Like discussions, what we're having, I think, is way more useful than us taking turns talking at each other.
Yes, I agree with that, which is why I do it this way. But I think formal debates also have their place. I don't know what that place is because I don't particularly like them.
But Jim, that was something I loved so much. Now you do you understand why I'm a dog with a bone about this? Like, yes. Dude, that was so important to me. If it turns out that it's just proof of mastery, and the blacksmith created the thing, I guess, but I thought that I was actually changing hearts and minds. And the fact is that the conversations are the things that are changing the people's minds. The personal relationships are the things that are changing people's minds. The talking at each other might be more of a rah thing. It might be more of a navel-gazing thing,
It might be. But I think, and this is where we kind of get into the difference between, what Socrates called not sophistry. Is it sophistry I'm thinking of? Rhetoric.
Rhetoric.
Right, where people are speaking well, and that's the only thing they have going for them. And I agree, that's a problem. And I'm not necessarily, and that's always going to be a problem. We can't I don't think we can get around that. We're human beings. But I don't know that it's I'm kind of stuck with this. I don't know of a better way other than to do it the way we're doing it. And so this is the best way I can think of.
I agree. I think that like on the hierarchy of things that I would want to put my time into, and dedicate significant amounts of my life to, the formal debate has really come down, but that doesn't mean that discussions have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think the thing that you care about is the thing that I care about. So,
yeah, getting to a
getting to have a conversation, getting to have these and especially when it is emotionally charged, and you say know me before you hate me. Those things are, I don't think, ever something that you can bring to a formal debate. And
mm-hmm.
that, I don't know, it just surprised me. It's a fight that I wanted to pick because, man, I thought that the talking at each other thing, but doing it really well I thought there was more giddy up in its go. And it turns out that I might have just had my head up my ass more, and the conversations, the stories
No,
were more important.
yeah, like I said, I think that I think they all have a place. I really, really do believe that. That everything has a place for how it goes. Formal debates keep people from talking over, and I think they do a better job of removing the emotion from it than casual conversations. And then because you get the point, counterpoint, and it's a verbal way of creating two columns on a page and putting everything for a thing and against a thing right next to each other. I think it's a good formal way of doing that verbally. And so that has a place. And we have to admit that Hitchens' debates were almost always formal of some kind, right? And he was a master at it and going up and just devastating his opponents. And I think that worked. And it worked for him. But I think, and that worked for that time because people would watch a debate. Well, let's watch two titans go at it, right? And now it's much more plebeian. So I think the conversations work better today. But I think there's a place for it.
I think I might that might be actually like a firm place where I disagree. I think Hitchens was a master storyteller. And I think that the emotional impact that he had through the stories that he told while he was on that stage, his ability to quip and to throw out a zinger and it stick with you and you remember it. Those are things that make taking and internalizing ideas more palatable to the audience. But I think that the strength of the impact had more to do with his ability to connect with the audience than necessarily his ideas winning out in a marketplace of ideas. Do you
I don't
know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So his zingers, I think, underscored his point. And I don't disagree with that either. But I think that again, I'm not saying it. I don't know that there's a best solution. I'm saying there's a wide variety of solutions.
Yeah.
And we don't have any data on what works the best. So we do the best that we can with something that seems to work for us, and maybe try and keep some data. And until you write it down, it's just messing about. It's not really doing science. So,
well, I it would be useful if we were to take like maybe a meta study, of thousands of people who were polled on their opinions before and after a debate, and how many people may have changed their vote, what they were going to vote before and after viewing a debate. That exists,
and that's been done, and
and we do have
Hitchens,
that data.
yeah, and Hitchens has done well. What we have is what people said at the time. We don't know what happened after. We don't know if anybody actually changed a vote, right? We only know how they whether or not they changed their minds immediately after the debate. But we do have I was going to say we had a caller, but it looks like they're just testing. Is that the case? We just have a caller who's testing.
I am being a little more spicy with it than I would be with you in person, Jim, because I want people to get pissed off. Call in. You want to say something? Call in.
Yeah,
let's hear you.
Exactly. So okay, that we have a problem with call in the studio where it's not coming through, or we're not able to hear them. So at least that's what's happening in our chat. So that's what's going on. So we don't actually have a caller anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know that so this is kind of my problem and why I'm waffling. I don't know that there is a right answer. So it would be nice to have one. I think it would be nice to know if this is better or not. But I just look back over my lifetime. I was born in 68. So the 70s, the 80s was when I was growing up. And we didn't talk about this kind of stuff. You didn't talk about politics. You didn't talk about religion because nobody knew how to have those conversations. And I think that's where people like the IFPB and, all the Christian nationalism is coming from. And so, I mentioned Christian nationalism one time in the presence of them. They had no idea what I was talking about. They had no idea what was even going on, and they didn't really believe it was because they couldn't think that Christians were really this way. We're really doing that, and now they're all, up on a podium doing the things that other Christians didn't think. One group of Christians probably didn't think another group of Christians could do some of this stuff. Westboro Baptist Church was seen as an outlier instead of a lot more, I won't say mainstream, but a lot closer to the mainstream than people give it credit for. And I think that is because it was in the shadows. And that's what I fear. And that's why I say doing this is better than leaving it in the shadows, is because we know we could pretty much guarantee that that's what happened previously. Yeah. That people would go into a church where there was an IFPB pastor and get drug in slowly. We know that's how this stuff happens, right? And so that happens in the 70s and the 80s and even the early 90s, not behind closed doors, but from behind, out of public scrutiny. And that's much harder to do today.
Just so I'm on the same page, when you say IFPB, are you saying Independent Fundamentalist Baptists?
Yeah, those guys.
Okay, just making sure.
IFB, there's no P in there, is there?
There might be. I just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page.
Yeah, those guys. But those are all things that that used to happen outside the public eye. Now with the internet, it's harder to do, and so I think it's more important to confront these ideas, if not in a direct conversation with somebody, then at least as a reaction video, it needs to happen. Otherwise they don't. Otherwise, where's the pushback?
Well, I think you can push back without debating them, and that's what I think the kind of piece on that is. And again, specifically, like I'm not disagreeing with you on discussion, on conversation.
Right.
Know me before you hate me. I'm specifically just talking about talking at each other, and the people who watch people who talk at each other. I think that when important things that are not up for, like, there is not a level that you're going to ever. I'm never going to say, "Hey, Jim, you need to really make a good argument for the human right." You know what I mean? And like, to create that, there was a Sartre quote that got me. Did you hear the Sartre quote? It was from the Anti-Semite and Jew.
Mm-mm.
He and Camus, they lived through all of that. The quote is, he says, "Never believe that anti-Semites are completely unaware of the absurdity of their replies, because yes, they did that. They wanted. We're just talking about it. We're just having a God. You're right. They know that their remarks are frivolous and open to challenge, but they are amusing themselves, for it is their adversary, that's us, who is obliged to use words responsibly, since he believes in words. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse, for by giving ridiculous reasons, they discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors." I think having debates about things that should not be debated actively does that. It discredits the seriousness of it by putting it on the table to be debated in the first place. And this is just about human rights. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we actually have Jake's actually ready, and he wants to talk about street epistemology, which is a third way to do what we're talking about. So Absolutely. Why don't I go ahead and bring him up, and we can talk a little bit about the street epistemology, because I think we're going to go back in a circle with what you just said and what I've been saying. So
that's fair. That's fair. This is
all right.
This might be rocking a hard place. We're stubborn, you guys. We're stubborn.
Are. Jake, welcome aboard. What do we think of? Well, I'll let Eric take the first shot at street epistemology.
What? Jake, you there? Jake? Oh, can you hear me? Jim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I cannot hear Jake.
Oh, okay. Jake, you there? Ladies and gentlemen, Jake is having some technical difficulties. We need we need like that elevator music. Need some girl from Dun, 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 dun. That's all we can afford. We can't really continue.
We can get actual hold music on it. Street epistemology, I think, is there we are. No,
Jake,
we had you momentarily.
It's okay. We won't bite. Jim might.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now, Jake.
Yeah, what did you want to talk about? Uh-oh. Yeah, we can hear something in the background.
Are we hearing that might have been a fire in that conversation? Or are we hearing just something in the back? Hearing something in the background of Jake. We should be hearing Jake.
Yeah.
Well, you are here. It's Wes is Jake. Wes is calling in as Jake. Can you hear me, guys?
I can hear you.
Okay, yes. Good. And for some reason we can hear Wes, but he can't hear us. So I think we'll just go with his question was about street epistemology. I guess he wants to tease out whether that's better than debate. Maybe Eric's opinion on that. Anyway, I'll bow out.
All right, I'm going to drop Jake unless you guys leave him on to see when we can start hearing him. I'm on to debug the system, or do you want me to drop him?
I would say we could just drop it. We'll get rid of Jake. It's Wes. We'll just drop Wes. And we'll go with his question.
All right.
So I think that street epistemology is incredibly useful. Mm-hmm. I think that it is the best thing Peter Boghossian has ever or will ever do. is inspire Anthony Magnabosco and a community to rise up around truly like empathetic, meet them where they're at conversations. The approach that they have is one that cares so much about the individual that they're talking to that honestly, I think that they're better people than I am. Like I think I would lose my shit. My blood pressure could not handle that. Like those are the saints of this, this genre. Like I have so much respect for people who do that.
The only problem I have with street epistemology is that watching it is not super entertaining. I'm not saying.
Jim, sometimes you got to eat your carrots and they're not the most entertaining food.
I agree. The best way to learn street epistemology is to go watch Anthony Magnabosco's channel, watch the other channels that are doing street epistemology, and learn and watch and do that. But for shows like what we do have an entertainment value. Yeah. That needs to be there, I think, to be successful. And Magnabosco's channel, I forget what it's even called. Anyway, his channel is absolutely great. And I think he's one of the masters of it. And I think he's one of the earlier ones. There's another one with I'm having a senior moment. He's a black guy who does the same thing, but he does all kinds of conversations using street epistemology. So he'll talk about God and he'll talk about whether Superman is better than Mighty Mouse.
Sure. And
just have conversations about that. And yeah, I think that given Magnabosco, you can see when people start to change their mind when Magnabosco is talking to them.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So the question, where does street epistemology fall into this? There is such a just this wellspring of empathy and of care for the person that you're talking to that feels like I want to be super clear. I'm specifically talking about, hey, you got invited to do a debate. That's not a conversation. That is not a street epistemology session. That is not a place where you are taking turns talking at each other because you have your points that you're bringing up. Street epistemology is like the antithesis of that. I think that it's incredibly important.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with that at all. And we do have another caller who wants to talk about mystical experiences and neuroscience.
Ooh.
So bringing up, is it Cafe or Cafe? How do you pronounce your names?
Hello.
We're not able to, we hear background noise.
Yeah.
If you're talking, if you don't think you're deep throating your mic, it's probably not close enough to your mouth.
Was this better, Jim?
We have slightly better mics than average.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because mine's not there either. But when you buy a couple $100 mic, and you've got the sound system behind it, you don't need to necessarily do that. Cafe, are you there? We can't hear him either.
No.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
How do we pronounce your name? Do you think he's watching the show?
I don't know.
Okay, guys, that's Wes again. I don't know why we're not getting Kafai through. I'm going to keep trying, though, because he did want to talk to you. So forgive us for the technical difficulties. We'll keep working on that to get Kafai through to you. So there. Apologies.
Yeah, no worries.
The live show experience.
Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. That means you're stuck with me, Jim.
Yeah, it does. And so
Jim's like, get me out of here.
No. I just wanted to update my. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought was right. But on that topic, I am not sure it's anything more than brain chemicals doing is giving us an experience that we call mystical. I don't know that it's evident that there's anything supernatural going on. That would be the key. But anyway, just to go back to street epistemology, I think if you're having a hard time talking to close friends, family, and all the rest of it, you can either attempt to set your boundaries and keep to them, which could mean cutting them off, or you could watch all of the street epistemology channels and get better at doing it. And it's not just watching, you also got to go out and practice. So practice on people willing to, not necessarily willing subjects, because we don't always do the best job, but practice it in real life on almost everything. You'd be surprised at how well it works. But there's also a really, really good book called Never Split the Difference. It's a book on negotiation written by the FBI's lead international negotiator. And he calls them qualified questions. And I think that's a really good way to put it. And that's basically what we're doing in a street epistemology, is we're asking qualified, targeted questions to get at something that is really going on. And that is a important tool to have in your box for negotiation, but it's also a really important tool for, it's just another piece of evidence that what street epistemology is doing is working. is we have a confirmation that the technique at least works. Chris Voss is the author of Never Split the Difference, negotiating as if your life depended on it. And he's doing much the same thing. He's using some other techniques involved in that too. But one of those is asking these qualified questions. He's the reason why I tend to not ask why, because he points out that why is often seen as an attack, and he doesn't know why that happens. But he suspects it's because when you're 3, one of the most common questions your parents ask you is, why did you do that? It comes from that. He thinks it may come from that, but we just don't know. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of good evidence that this works. But I find him interesting on an intellectual level, but I don't find him nearly as entertaining as what we do, just because Magna Moscow doesn't have the views that any of the shows that we're on have. So
no, it's an entirely different axiom. There's this entire shift in goals and perspective there that we respect. We absolutely. It's just it is different. It is interesting that people they recoil when you ask why, and that's why that the story of Socrates is what it is. It is why it's been something that we've talked about for a very long, because it's just that asking of why. It's the heart of skepticism, and yet it's the thing that's going to end that open listening dialogue so quickly. Stick to the what, not the why, even though the practice of skepticism is asking the why.
Asking why do you believe that and what led you to that conclusion is the same question. Just one does not have the word that is.
Me up in your word foo. How dare you? This is nothing but rhetoric, Jim, and I'm offended.
It is, but I think one of the things that we have to remember is that there is a way to ask questions that does not automatically get someone's hackles up. Courtesy is I think this was a Robert Heinlein quote from one of his books and one of his characters, that courtesy is the lube by which human interaction works. Without it, the gears of human interactions come screeching to a halt, something along those lines. Lazarus Long is the character I was thinking of. And I think that's really, really true, that you can say, I'm blunt because I'm speaking the truth. Well, that's a load of bullshit.
No, you're just an asshole.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
And you're exactly right. You're just an asshole. Because in doing that doesn't get you where you want to go.
No.
Right.
You're just finding an excuse for being a dick.
Right. And so, yes, is it a rhetorical trick? Absolutely. Yeah. Does it get you, does it stop the conversation in its tracks? No. It keeps the conversation going, because once the conversation stops, you're not getting anywhere anymore. So you're shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. And I think that's why it's important to stay away from that why question, because you can only ask why so many times before they get frustrated, right? And so you do things like, okay, well, let me feed this back to you, make sure that I understand. And so you create this thought experiment to explore that. And so you use these types of things to get there. Are there rhetorical tricks? Can they be used for evil? Yes, they can.
Well, I'm half joking when I say that it's the rhetorical thing, but what I was trying to get at was shifting a question to why are you doing this into what got you here, moves you from a place of, explaining what is going on right now versus taking a forensic approach to what has happened. The why to what was I was just I was being playful.
Yeah, no, and I think, but I also think it's important to understand the difference too, because sometimes you need to use that why question, kind of for that shock value, for that purpose, and that's something that works too. But yeah, there are rhetorical tricks to making things sound good, but the thing is, the bad guys do it too. I don't know. Have you ever spoken to someone, a native German speaker who was alive when Mustachio Man was alive?
So, I don't know if you remember this, but my adoptive family is German, and I actually got to go to Germany quite a bit. My great grandfather, my Opa, was conscripted as a Nazi soldier. So I did personally know someone who was a Nazi.
Yeah. Well, I've had two conversations with two different people who were alive then, and I specifically asked them this question. Because my understanding is that listening to this guy was like listening to a Kennedy, not the current Kennedy, but the president, or Bill Clinton or Obama. That his oratory skills were beyond the pale. And because to me, as an English speaker, he doesn't sound like that, because German, to my ear, is such a harsh language. And both of them said, yeah, he was exactly that. So when I say the bad guys are doing the same thing, I mean that in the most literal sense. Just because it's a rhetorical trick doesn't mean that we shouldn't use it. Because the other problem is we have done experiments on rats where we remove the emotional centers of the brain, or we damage them so they're no longer effective, and rats can't make decisions. We've done studies on people where this has happened accidentally, birth defect, etc., and they have the exact same problem. Once we remove the emotional centers of the brain, we as human beings stop being able to make decisions, to include that we have to eat.
I was I'm sorry. You took it to a fun place, and my brain just sat in the dark place. My doomer ass can't let you have a nice thing, Jim. I'm sorry. I still love you. You got me thinking. So I was watching a documentary about the Nuremberg trials.
Mm-hmm.
We can only hope. And right? Okay. Yeah, we're not on a nonprofit. Let me just say that it definitely says something about your confidence in the United States when you think that, oh yes, standing trial at The Hague would be way more effective, because I no longer have the confidence that standing trial in the United States would actually get any of these people what they deserve. But this documentary that I was watching, the highest ranking official in the party that they had at the Nuremberg trials, it wasn't Goebbels. It definitely wasn't Mustachio Man.
He
cowered
it out.
Absolutely. It was Goering. And this guy, when he got put on trial, everyone, people who hated him with every fiber of their being, everyone there was entranced by him. He was so likable. He was so captivating in the way that he spoke that the people who were actually trying the trials, were just like, they didn't know what to do. And I think that kind of goes back into the power that speech has on people that we don't realize, that it would have been better not to put Goering in front of the microphone to begin with than to let him convince people and get likable, because it's harder to hate someone that you like, even if they are responsible for the worst things you've ever seen or heard.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of hating anybody. I don't hate Trump. I don't hate any of it. I hate his policies, but I don't hate him as a human being. But that just gives, that's just me personally, because I don't find it useful to hate. I think hate blinds us.
You're right.
To a lot of things, right? Now, in Trump's case, I think he's so far gone that there isn't too much redeemable. But I think if we go back to the 80s when he was not as sundowning, or his mental problems were a lot less, that we probably could have found something that was actually positive about the guy. I don't know what it is. I don't know him well enough, although I did read a lot of his books at one point.
So how long were you doing stuff with the ACA before I got there? Because I think you were there before me, weren't you?
I wasn't super active, but I believe so, yeah.
So when I got involved, it was 2016, 2017, right around there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a podcast that was going on in San Antonio that was the podcast for recovering from religion, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that podcast?
No, I don't think I ever paid any attention to it, but okay.
There was a conversation that we had. It kind of blew me away. What happened was one of the hosts was dealing with some shit, and he decided that killing his child, his wife, and himself was the best way to go, and so he did.
Family Annihilator, right?
Yeah. Does that ring a bell? Like, we were all kind of hit pretty hard. It was around 2016 that it happened. It was rough.
No, I don't. No.
There was a conversation about how to remember this person and whether or not, in the wake of his violence, we should still keep those episodes up. And what was ultimately decided was that every episode that he was in was taken down, and every time that the incident was talked about, it was the family, the wife, and the child who were mentioned, but the guy wasn't, because what he did to the community was irredeemable.
And I don't disagree with anyone making that decision. And I would not say that they made the wrong decision. My view on it is it's very rare for people to be one-dimensional, and we should remember the good and the bad, not one or the other. But I have no problems with people saying, no, we're not going to. Like I don't have problems with organizations or people deplatforming.
Yeah,
people and stuff like that. But we do have a caller.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I hate to interrupt the conversation here.
No,
but,
that's okay.
This is either Cafe or Kefi. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
Kofi.
But he wants to talk about
I don't know.
Kofi? How do you pronounce your name, sir? Jimmy?
Did you say cafe? Me gusta cafe. That works.
It's spelled K-A-F-E-I. But if you want us to call you, what do you want us to call you?
Yeah, I mean, Cafe or Jimmy is fine. I can respond to either or.
Cool. What's up, brother?
So you want to talk about mystical experiences and neuroscience and a John Hopkins study?
Yeah, I've actually spoken to both of you guys on this stuff. I think I've had a long conversation with you on Facebook, Jim, and I've called into Talk Heathen a few times when you used to do that, Eric.
Yeah, you called into Skepgen as well. Are you the heroic dose guy?
Yeah.
Basically.
But, well, I mean, they associate me with that. I really am more an advocate for the neuroscience of religion. Like a lot of the studies, they're not just studies involving psychedelics. There's studies that have been done on the Carmelite nuns, for instance, that enter contemplation naturally, and they were studied by fMRI, or the Tibetan monks were studied with EEG, and they're not using psychedelics to induce these states, but because it's so, I guess it's kind of like happenstance thing with them. It's not as reliable as inducing it with psychedelics.
Right. And so your claim is that they're actually having a encounter with something supernatural through drugs or altering their mental state naturally. Is that your claim?
No, I think that's a misconception of this research that, whenever I asked Matt Dillahunty once to define supernatural, and he said that he couldn't define it because he had never experienced it. I'm not sure how you guys define that term, but I would assume maybe you're defining it as that which is not natural or that which defies the laws of physics. And so if you're defining it that way, I think that's a misconception because, a mystical experience is not some type of violation of physics. If you're going to define it that way, then you kind of ruled out what the mystics are describing already.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would look at the dictionary and go look at the dictionary for supernatural and tell you that it is a manifestation or event attributed to some force beyond scientific understanding or the laws of nature. But if you're going to say that these experiences are within the laws of nature and are purely natural, then I'm not going to have a problem with that happening, because chemicals doing chemical things, and our brains are, bathed in a wide variety of chemicals. I have ADHD because my brain doesn't make a certain chemical, and I've got to supplement it. So yeah, I don't think we're going to have any disagreement there.
I do got to say, I do got to say, Cafe. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Okay. No, I can wait. Go ahead.
So I was just going to lament that that happens. But we can, I feel like I'd be taking us in a different direction. What's going on? We want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Okay. So no, I was going to point out that I think the reason it gets associated with that, or people run into this misconception, is because, there's 6 criteria that they use to define this phenomenon. And one of them is a transcendence of time and space. People report often when they come down from this experience, they don't interview them while they're having this experience. They usually wait till it's over. And, if they'll try to reach for metaphors such as, it felt as though I was able to perceive reality from, hyperdimensionally or fourth dimensionally, they'll kind of reach for those type of metaphors. And it's not necessarily that they're violating the laws of physics. I think, they're not transcending reality itself. It's more that they're transcending the way we usually perceive reality. We usually perceive reality.
What do you mean by transcend the way? What do you mean by transcend the way we usually perceive reality? What does that mean?
Well, so, when we're in an ordinary state of consciousness, we kind of operate in tense time. Like, I did this yesterday. I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to meet her later. But in this phenomenon, there's a profound break within the subject-object dichotomy that we have in everyday ordinary consciousness, where there is the impression of where all time, past and future, are collapsing into the moment. And I don't mean
just because somebody describes an experience, just because somebody describes an experience as time collapsing and becoming all one and all the rest of it, does that mean it's true, or does that just mean that's the only way they can describe the experience?
Yeah, no, this is what I'm trying to get at. That it doesn't mean it's true in some physics sense, but it is true in that it's invariably reported by all the volunteers who meet criteria for this phenomenon. The John
Okay, so what?
Can I take a stab at this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it sounds like you're talking about atypical brain chemistry, right? Your brain's not working the way it normally does. Yeah. And so you're experiencing. So if I go and get drunk, am I having a mystical experience? Because if I get drunk and black out, time has completely stopped for me, and I just teleport to whenever I wake up. So that sounds in line with what you're saying, that I imbibed a substance. My perception of the world around me has changed. It's an atypical experience in the way that I'm perceiving things, and it is impacting my experience of time and my relation to it. So is getting drunk also a mystical experience?
I don't think so, because alcohol is definitely not known to induce mystical experience.
Man, I'm trying so hard here. I thought that was good. Okay, so why isn't it?
Okay, so the transcendence of space and time is only one characteristic of 6 that they go by.
When you say transcendence of space and time, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And how do I know that's not anything more than brain chemicals, chemicals acting on the brain in chemical ways to create something that we notice? I mean, what does it mean?
Well, in terms of neurophysiology, I've heard some materialists try to attempt to explain it by, because there is reduction of activity in the default mode network. And if you're familiar with the DMN, the DMN is responsible for all the activity in the brain related to your ego, your sense of self. And so if you reduce activity and what essentially constitutes your sense of self, then you may have this impression that you're not a fixed entity, a bodily entity.
Right, and that's just chemicals doing chemical things. So what? Yeah. And I agree that chemicals have an effect on the brain in many interesting ways, depending on what the chemical is. But so what?
Okay, well, when you say so what, I mean, you could say a chemical thing for virtually any experience we have, because all experience is constituted by these chemicals. So it's sort of a non-statement to me, at least. And where I think it's meaningful here is that what these researchers have shown is that when people meet criteria for this phenomenon, they could actually map it one per one with these characteristics, with how mystics of the major religions have reported mystical experience throughout each of the world's major religions. Or so when you have a Christian mystic who speaks of the Holy Spirit, or a Hindu yogi that enters
But does any of that prove that the Holy Spirit or anything does it prove anything supernatural is actually happening?
I don't understand why it's such weighted for you for the supernatural to be so relevant to the conversation. I think it's absolutely irrelevant.
Because you're using the word mystic, and mystic usually refers to something supernatural happening. If the only thing we're doing is discussing the effect of drugs on the brain, fine, but we're here hoping that somebody's going to try and convince us that a God exists, or why we should care about the Bible, or even the Quran. And if all you're going to say is John Hopkins did these studies on this stuff for mystical experiences, and okay, great, that's awesome. Do these mystical experiences have a positive effect on people? I'm sure they do. That's all fine.
So are you specifically just wanting to talk about the phenomenology involved here, the experience that?
I do think the phenomenology is important, and I don't see the way I think Jim is kind of brushing it off as like, I don't see the supernatural here, therefore this is irrelevant. See, this is what and earlier I heard you say something interesting in the chat, Eric, that I think you said something like, well, you would have to drastically transform the meaning of God in order for have that to fit. And I think what's going on here is I think Jim has a preconceived notion of what he thinks God is, and it's necessarily associated with the supernatural. And if he doesn't find the supernatural in something, then he's going to say, well, this is not evidence for God. That's
not what I said at all. You're completely misrepresenting my position.
Yeah, the good thing is we have Jim here who can tell you.
Yeah. This show is about people calling in and talking about whether or not God exists, or whether or not, something about religion. If you want to call and just, shoot the shit about, chemicals do really cool things to the brain, that's a different show.
I think that.
Well, obviously,
Go ahead, Cafe.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So
No,
what?
obviously, I'm not trying to say that chemicals do cool things to the brain. I'm saying a little bit more than that, but go ahead.
So I definitely don't. This is not my show, and so I don't want to move in a format that's not, conducive to what the show wants to do. But if you have a belief in this, I think I've adjusted since then. You're welcome to call into SkepGen. It's earlier on Sundays.
Because I don't know what your point is. I agree that it's something more than cool chemicals, right? But okay, they're having these experiences. What's next?
Okay, well, here's a direction I could take it in. They've had atheist volunteers at Johns Hopkins who, when they induce this experience, they're no longer able to identify as atheists. And I think what's going on here is that the mystical experience is defined by, it's not, some supernatural event. They're going by William James' original definition in his book, The Varieties of Religious Experience, and they're kind of refining it from there. And so, so it's not, I just want to be clear from the jump that it's not distinguished. A mystical experience is distinguished from like ordinary religious feelings or sentiments, numinous experience, visions or voices or occult phenomena, telepathy, clairvoyance, things like that. It's not something supernatural in that sense. And it never was meant in that, it was never meant to mean anything like that. But what I think is occurring is that it's a powerful transformation of one's perception. And when this happens to an individual, they develop a new, not really a new definition of God, but they kind of understand God in the way mystics understood the divine.
Well, hold on. I get about 40% of what you're saying, and then I feel like 60% is moving into ancient aliens, and I want to try and parse that apart a little bit.
Yeah.
Hello. Do we have another person on the line? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I can hear.
Okay, sorry. No, I thought I heard somebody chime in. Okay, so what I was going to say was just kind of parsing this apart so that we can get this, laid out. There are a couple of things that you said that could probably be a way that call show hosts would start to, tune out. Do you know who Francis Collins is?
Francis Collins? No, I looked him up though.
No, he's a scientist who became a Christian because he had a spiritual experience where he saw 3 frozen waterfalls, and it was his evidence that God exists, and he became a Christian, right? It was not anything in his it was not anything in his field of study that caused him to become a Christian. It's not anything that he was an expert in. He just had a very powerful experience, and that caused him to say that he was a Christian. I think for people like Jim and I, we look at that and go, man, you got to raise the bar. Like that's a really shitty reason to change your cosmological view of the world. But because of that, especially when we're talking about people who aren't in the room, talking about other people changing their worldview, it's very, very difficult. It's difficult because I don't know if you're straw manning them. I don't know if you're steel manning them. I don't know if things have changed or what their reasoning was or anything like that. And because of that, it's so abstracted that it's very difficult for me to use that as like compelling evidence, either to hear someone say it or to say it myself. You know what I mean? So that piece of that feels very difficult for us to deal with.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, so I've had a quote unquote mystical experience myself, and I have not come to any supernatural conclusions because of it. When I was in the Army, a buddy of mine and I were getting ready to go do a test on a radar. They were testing our knowledge of how to troubleshoot the darn thing. And as we're walking up there, he says a bunch of Latin sounding words, waves his hands, and then turns to me and says, "I've cursed our radar." And I'm like, great, wonderful. We were both joking. Neither one of us were serious. So the first step in figuring out what's wrong with the radar is you turn it on. Well, as soon as we turned it on, the dish is supposed to start turning, and it starts turning in the wrong direction and making this groaning, shuddering noise. We both hit the off switch at the same time, look at each other and go, what the fuck just happened? And then and our instructor spent the next hour going to that radar to figure out why it was doing that, because the electronics shouldn't have allowed it. Should I, from that experience, conclude that demons exist? What should I conclude from that experience of anything at all?
Are you asking me? Oh no, I would say that's aligned with what's typically known as a hallucination, according to a lot of professionals in neuroscience.
No, that was not a hallucination. It actually did happen, right? Because I wasn't the only one who did it. I wasn't the only one who heard the noise. My buddy did. Our instructors did. Everybody in the class did. Heck, everybody in the building did, because it was the radar was inside a building along with a bunch of other equipment, because this was Redstone Arsenal, where the Army does a lot of their a lot of training in electronics equipment. The Patriot guys were trained there. The Avenger guys were trained there. So there was a lot of people who heard this and a lot of people who came over. So it was not a hallucination. The radar turning in the wrong direction and making a groaning noise was definitely not a hallucination.
Well, no, when you give the detail of everyone else witnessing it as well, then obviously I wouldn't go to hallucination at that point. But I think what you're trying to get at is, more like Occam's razor. Well, should we assume it's demons or should we assume it's faulty equipment or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what should I assume?
Yeah. I would probably go with faulty equipment. I wouldn't violate Occam's razor here.
Right. And when I ask Christians this, if I should assume that demons exist, I never get an answer out of them. And it's nice to get one out of you. But I shouldn't assume from that experience that anything supernatural is there. So why should I assume that anybody having any other similar experience and that atheists have done it and become Christians is irrelevant? Sam Harris writes about it in Waking Up. He had a similar experience and did not conclude there was a God. So that people change their minds because they have experiences is okay. That's nice. Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'm trying to sell you the supernatural here. I think ultimately because you keep on invoking the supernatural, what I think I'm trying to say is that there is a fundamental shift in perception that occurs in these type of experiences. And maybe once you've had this, you won't see the divine as so intimately associated as with the supernatural as you seem to do right now.
Why?
Well, because I think that's what occurs when people have these types of experiences. They develop, like I said, they kind of see it reframes their understanding or notion of God to more align with what mystics have described throughout centuries.
Why do I care what mystics have described through the centuries? Why do I care about these people changing their minds based on drug-induced?
Well, I didn't really care much too, but until I had a mystical experience for myself, and then a lot of their descriptions started jumping out at me. So I think. Right now it might seem irrelevant to you, but I think if you had a mystical experience, then it might resonate with you at that point.
Maybe. But at that point, I think you got to accept that your experience may not necessarily map onto ours. And there are some philosophers you check out Chalmers. Check out David Chalmers. He argues that we'll never be able to experience the same experience you had. Just that is the just part of the fact that we're different living beings. But I don't want to be dismissive of you here. I just think that what's getting under my skin a little bit, and I know you're trying, and I want you to understand why, but I had a conversation with an uncle who said, Eric, you're going to be a Republican once you pay taxes. All you need to do is pay taxes. You're just not mature enough. You're not grown up enough. And when you grow up, you'll realize that the things you're saying just don't make sense. But given life experience, you will see the world the way that I do. Well, I'm 38 now, and I don't. I think that there's a chance that if we do all of the things that you're talking about, we may have a similar experience. But I guess the question is, are you just talking about an experience, or do you think that we should be taking like that there are knowledge claims we can draw from it? Because now I'm here with now I'm on Jim's page here. Jim, I've followed, because like, so what if not, like if people are having mystical experiences and those experiences are leading them to understand the world around them in a way that gets them closer to an accurate understanding of the world, like, awesome. If not, that's cool too. Doing drugs can be fun. Don't do it. Whatever warnings will make Skeptic Haven okay, but seriously, man, I mean, but I guess, yeah, our question is, now it's our question. It was Jim. Now it's both of us. Like, are you just saying that drugs are fun, or are you saying that there's something underneath that those people are getting to that we just don't have access to?
Well, okay, I'll definitely you threw caution there at the audience, and I think that's necessary. We don't want people taking these things willy-nilly. But yep. I have heard you, Eric, and I don't mean to throw you under the bus here.
You're good.
Admit that you've had psychedelic experience, and you didn't that you didn't take quote unquote dose.
Yeah. But, so and I do just want to what I will say is that when I did hallucinogenic drugs, I did them respecting the drug with meditation, introspection, a sitter, and not mixing drugs, being very, very careful and respecting the impact that it would have on me. So, just, you guys, don't be stupid. Go ahead, Coffee.
No, yeah. So what I did notice that I think I asked you, I forgot whose channel you're on. I think it was maybe Gladys Granny, and you asked you from the chat if you had tried heroicus, and you admitted that you had not. And what I wanted to make clear here, though, because you mentioned fun, these experiences are definitely not fun at the dose ranges that these studies are using. So, they're using what Terence McKenna essentially called a heroic dose. And it's not, they don't make people chew mushrooms. It's a single pill of pure psilocybin that is the equivalent. And,
fuck that.
They'll make the volunteer come in. Well, they have professionals surrounding you, and if anything goes awry, they're there for you. And usually they have a pretty good track record there. They haven't lost anyone or something like that. But
hold on, Cafe. I could also eat an entire sheet of acid and have a hell of an experience. Doesn't mean I want to, and it doesn't mean that it's going to teach me anything. So what is this teaching you? What are you learning through this experience, other than just saying you had an experience? Because it could be just like bungee jumping or jumping out of an airplane and parachuting. It could be, going and swimming in some beautiful coral reefs out in the Caribbean. Those are all cool experiences you can have that can change you and make you happy. But they're not, there's not a fundamental shift necessarily in the way the world works, in the way that I'm perceiving the world. Do you get what I mean? You can have a really good chocolate cake, but that doesn't mean that well,
you gave
Jim?
You seem to offer a lot of examples that are necessarily inside the subject-object dichotomy. I think one of the most profound things that happens on these high doses is a complete dissolution of that subject-object duality. And what I mean by that is that as you sit there, you're looking out at a camera maybe, but that division between where your body ends and the rest of reality begins, that completely dissolves inside one of these experiences.
And again, I'm left asking, what's your point, right? Because when I scuba dive, especially on a wreck, you're floating. I'm just there in the ocean with every other fish. So I don't get what your point is. Yeah, these things are cool, and I'm glad some people are studying them, but okay, so what? And I'm still left asking that same question. You haven't answered, why do I care about this, and why should anybody else care about this? And why call it a mystic experience other than we don't have another word for it?
Well, I do admit that it's unfortunate that the term mystical experience is the one that's stuck, but it is used in the neuroscientific studies. It's a legitimate scientific term at this point now, since we've had decades worth of research. Perhaps we could have used a better term, but yeah, that's the one we have to deal with. But even the professionals will align this phenomenon with what they call their perennial philosophy, and I'm not too sure if you guys are familiar with that. And I think there is a bit more here. I think what I was going to say with Eric was that it's night and day difference between taking a mid-range dose to the doses that they're using in the study. And I think if one really wants to challenge their epistemology and so forth, and really see what these mystics are talking about, I think that it's necessary to go that far. It's necessary to have that heroic dose to really see what's going on.
What would this prove? What would this prove to me, or to Eric? What would this prove?
I think we have an axiomatic difference here, Cafe.
Yeah.
Jim and I think Jim, I think I can speak for both of us when I say that making epistemic decisions should be done sober. When you're talking about their toolbox for understanding the world, what you're breaking into to piece all of that apart needs to be done sober. I'm not going to change my understanding of the way the world works when I'm drunk, when I'm high, or when I'm doing anything that's going to mess with my brain chemicals so much that I'm no longer able to make sense of things, because I want to have rationality behind the way that I understand the world. So I think that an axiom is not necessarily, true or false. It's just what's important to you. And I think you're Cafe living your life with a different axiom, one where being, this heroic dose makes you feel like it informs the way you understand the world. And I think that is just a fundamental difference that we have.
And I would add, I would never base anything I believe on personal experience as much as humanly possible, especially a human experience where it's chemicals doing things to my brain in such a way. So anyway,
Cafe, I think we're going to scooch on. Yeah, sorry.
It's been a fun conversation. I'm not sure what the point was, but it has been fun.
Take care, my man.
All right, thanks. I just got one last thing, if I may.
If it's a Baba Booey, I'll lose my shit.
By the name of Carlo Ravelli that has done the heroic dose, and he did. I don't know if you're familiar with the block universe that Einstein spoke of, but he said he had a better understanding of what Einstein meant by the block universe, and I could kind of see that.
The what universe? The what universe?
Block universe. It's a notion in physics.
Block.
Universe. I think that
Oh, eternalism concept for suggesting that the past, present, future all exist simultaneously in a single four-dimensional block of
that sounds like the B
space
theory of
time.
Oh, is that what B and B theory of time stands for?
I could be. But I don't know why being on drugs would help you understand the block theory, anything about physics better, since physics is, also known as a block universe theory. The B theory of time, also known as block universe, posits that past, present, and future are all equally real, and the perceived flow of time is an illusion of human consciousness. I don't know why anybody would think that they understand physics better when physics relies on experiments happening in the real world.
No, I just wanted to make one point really quick, and that is that, I just wanted to leave you with an analogy. When you drop a dye marker of ink in, for instance, in a bowl of water, it will kind of point out all the convection currents inside a bowl of water. Well, you can essentially do that with consciousness and psychedelics. I think the psychedelics are, in a way, that dye marker into the aqueous, seamless stream of consciousness. And you can and there's things to learn there. So I don't want to end it on a point where you guys just kind of are left confused. But, there's a lot of science behind this.
Cool. I'm not saying there isn't a lot of science behind it. I'm not saying it's cool. I just don't know that I care about anybody who thinks they can understand physics by taking drugs. That's a little wacky, and it's a cool thing that you think that your little analogy there is cool and all.
I think I'm gonna have more to say once we finish up the call. But
all right. Well, thanks, Cafe. We will talk to you next time you feel like calling. All right, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Cool. All right. See you guys.
Jim,
I need drugs.
I hear that sigh. Like we were saying, early in the episode, sometimes it's okay to navel gaze. Sometimes it's okay to do the things that bring you joy. You know what does kill me though is, I'll try and be quick with this. I just, the other night, do you remember V?
Yeah, of course.
V and I are still together.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're sitting in front of the fireplace the other night, and I looked at V and I said, could you imagine teleporting somebody who was like into alchemy in the 1600s to now, and then looking at what we can do in chemical labs, and then be like, yeah, no, you're doing alchemy. That's the alchemy. Well, and I think that our definition of mysticism is a progressive march to non-existence. The more we know about it, the less mystical it is, right? Because by definition, mystical is a thing that is unknown, right? Spiritual is a thing that we don't have an explanation for. It kills me. I wish that there's a way that we can still talk about wonder for the natural world in a way that can encapsulate that we get joy out of things too. Like I feel like before you knew how yeast and leaveners made bread, there was some magic in there. But you know what? I have made cinnamon rolls, and I can tell you from personal experience, it's pretty fucking magical. Just because I know the things that are a part of it does not lessen the wonder and the joy of the natural world that I live in. And so I have to wonder if people like Cafe hear us kind of push mystical out and go, oh, they're not interested. When the fact is, it feels like the more we can understand the thing, the more we can embrace it too. Right. And the less mystical it naturally becomes because of that.
Well, I don't know about less mystical, because like you said, just because you understand how bread's made, I think helps in the understanding of what really good bread is, and the work and the skill that goes into doing any of those things. So, rolls, man. Yeah, a good cinnamon roll.
Change your life. It'll change your life, Jim.
It will. And a good wine, a good wine with a good wine will take a mediocre meal and make it great, and take a great meal and turn it into something hedonistic. And a great wine is just one of those things that you have to have with a meal in order to even begin to understand it. So
pair that with good company, and that's something that'll get me through the lonely days, knowing I can have one of those.
Yeah. And oh, look, Cafe's back in chat talking about they have a preconceived notion of God. But you didn't want to talk about God, and I kept trying to bring it up. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm on Jim's side on this one. Jim did really try to steer you there, buddy. But that's okay. Anyway, I know we're probably running up on the end of things. And
we've got some folks, I believe those are the Patreons that are running at the bottom. I'd like to thank them all. And if they start again here, we'll actually read. Patrons, they are the patrons. Okay. You can tell we don't do this show very often. Paul Cammish and Karen Butcher and Logan Fisher, Amanda McLeod, Rion, D. Murphy, Dan D, and Michael Wiseman, Sonny Shell, Phil Calderone, all of you folks, thank you so much for supporting Skeptic Haven on Patreon. We appreciate it. Our YouTube members include the great, the wonderful Kelley Laughlin, Logan Fisher, Cynthia McDonald, Infidel, Angela, Stop the Stupidity, and tons of mice. Some of these nicknames, handles are absolutely wonderful. Thanks to you all for supporting Skeptic Haven. Like, subscribe, do all those things that you need to do that are free. And if you can support Skeptic Haven by tossing a little cash your way, please do so, but only if you can. And it's not going to hurt you financially. Just share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Eric, where can people find you?
They can find me on Skeptic Generation. Just type it into YouTube, you'll find me. And if you want to find stuff I've been on, I'm just type in my name. You'll find it everywhere. Jim, where can people find you?
Well, so I actually have been posting stuff on my YouTube channel, Jim Barrows. Wherever you see Jim Barrows, that's me. I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, and I am on Facebook. I am on Atheist Experience next month. And I believe I'm on the line also next month or this month, I forget which. So you can find me on those, and occasionally on Skeptic Haven, where they call me in at the last minute, which I do not mind. Glad I can help. So, and then I am doing TikTok lives. I'm hoping to do lives on YouTube here as soon as TikTok will give me that ability to do that. Just got to share with OBS and cables, combobulate some things to make it all work. And so I'll be on live on doing conversations just like this with people on TikTok and YouTube. So you can find me there.
Sounds good. I missed your face, Jim.
Missed you too. We'll talk to you next time.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.